Hello, welcome to the next episode in the Creativity in the Enneagram series. Today I'm talking with Victoria Guidi. She is a sexual 4 on the Enneagram and an ENFP in the Myers-Briggs system. And I'm very excited. We've already been talking about creativity in the background here. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what do you do? I don't know, just an intro.
Yeah, I'll answer the question like this. And a little bit about myself. I'm a seeker. I've been a lifelong seeker into the depths of me. And a lot of that seeking has felt like a running away, uh, while simultaneously into the seeking, also a running away from a lot of what's actually here. Yeah, so this is indicative of the sexual 4, in feeling any pain arise, and turning to the outside world and blaming them for the experience that's happening inside. So there's been, a bit of the running away as well as the seeking. So probably about 6 years ago, I started into a practice with a teacher, and that really had me come face to face with what I was up to, with what my personality was doing. And so, and I met her and started to practice with her when I arrived here to Boulder, Colorado, where I live. And I met my partner inside that container of practice. And so he and I have been in this very conscious seeker relationship, because he happens to be a self-preservation 4. We've been in this relationship for about five years and going really, really strong. And having started that relationship inside practice with our teacher, who would say, unless there's sharp pain, you're staying in. Like, what is here? Get really curious, love through it, shine through. What do you need to let go? What do you need to receive? So, in sharing a little bit about myself, I'm kind of, and like a forever evolving creative being, I guess you could say. And in a really beautiful relationship with my partner, and the both of us are really relaxing into who we naturally are, and essentially just letting creativity flow through us. Yeah.
Wow. I like that sense of avoiding and seeking, because I think there's a number of us who hold that coin, and we don't always know if in the seeking we're avoiding, or if in the avoiding we're seeking, and we get lost in that paradox sometimes.
Yeah.
It can be hard to break out of it. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've already mentioned creativity a few times. So, like, what does creativity mean to you? Sort of either as, how would you describe it or define it, or maybe even just some of the things that you do that you consider creative. Because when I speak to 4s, they say to me, like, everything I do is creative. And I'm like, well, how is that? Like, how? And so I'm really curious to understand for you as a sexual 4, like, what is creativity? What does it look like? What does it feel like? All the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, as I was thinking about this question, and as you're just saying right now, 4 say everything is 4. And I teach a yoga class, and I often it's about bringing everything online. I mean, that's one of the things that I speak often about, is bringing everything online. So yeah, yeah, the four, yeah, everything. But I would say for me that creativity is, well, a number of things. I'll define it probably in a few ways. Like an exploration both into and from the depths of me. And it's a feeling that is emerging from within, and it's both simultaneously impulsive and spontaneous, the creativity. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a force, but it's spontaneous, what is going to come of it, but it's a movement. And it's generally it's rising from the unconscious, and it's what wants to arise from it. And it's not, for me, it's not from a conceptual place. I really feel it primarily in my heart center.
Mm.
It's And when I am creating, and what I specifically like to really express my creativity through, which is music, singing, and both. I've been playing a lot of the harmonium these days, um, and singing and recording everything on a loop station. Um, so when I just center my my awareness here into my heart center, and sound, or hear the sound, or play the keys from awareness there, that's where that wellspring, I think Hudson and
Mm.
Lisa might have spoken about that with the four, this wellspring of creativity. Like, it's just ever flowing.
Mm.
Um, and and I would say too about creativity for me is, it's expression from and through the heart as well. Yeah, it's like a feeling expression for me, and it's there's a lot of range, and um and it doesn't necessarily, like, it feels good, but that feeling good doesn't mean it has to be like a happy, joyous, uppity experience. It's
Mm.
just it's reaching deep within, and whatever's there inside those seas of the heart and deep down, like, whatever comes forth is good and right, and this flowing creative force, or a rising force. So I guess that is how I would define creativity.
I love it. I love this definition. And there's quite a few things that I love, but one was that sense of the impulsiveness and the spontaneity together. So there was this force moving through you and coming out, but you're not, I think what I understood from it was you're not aware of its intention. So therefore there is a spontaneity of just energy as it emerges as to what happens. It's not an intentional impulsiveness, as I think is what I understood there.
Right. And the the interesting part about creativity for me is, sometimes there's just sheer raw expression that's coming forth, and I don't know where it's come from, and it's just coming. And then there's other times where I'll go into the studio to record because I'm triggered, and so I move the energy through, and there is it's like it's like a little tricky because I'm using this trigger and this feeling I have inside, and anger at someone or annoyance at someone, and I'm I'm getting creative with it. So
Mhm.
I'm I'm moving the energy, and it's okay. How can I get creative instead of just being in this triggered place? And
Mm.
I want to maybe like lash out at the person, or I want to just be in my mud of
You want your sexual fondness to just thrive.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yeah,
it sounds like that for you, there is a difference between using creativity to help you heal and process, and using creativity when it's just flowing, it's just
right,
more spontaneous.
right. And
Okay.
also using creativity in service as well. So
Aha.
yeah,
Okay.
three ways I'm seeing how I use creativity, because I teach a yoga class, and I also work with people, individuals, and couples. My partner and I, we do deep dive medicine work with people, and some of the songs that I create are in service to that work that we do. But the music gets weaved in and out through the course of our time with the individuals, um and so when I'm creating, I might be having that vision in mind, or that feel in mind. um
Mhm.
uh am I making myself
Yeah, so
clear? I think
what I'm hearing is I want, let's just say I want my client or the class to have a certain experience. How can I create that experience through this piece of music?
yes, and and it's not that I want them to have a certain experience. I or I guess I would probably word it differently, is um like I think of the like a block of ice, and then you're chipping away at it to break it. Um so wanting to like penetrate something, just to because so much of the work, what my partner and I do, our orientation in the work with people is very heart centered, just getting right into the heart. So
Mm.
when I'm creating music, there's it's more of the client, whether it be an actual client or one I'm envisioning. I have them before me, and I'm singing to them, or I'm
Uh-huh.
singing for them, or I'm opening my heart, like they're there, and
Okay.
I'm yeah, yeah, yeah. and
And
then and then when I'm just creating on my own, I'm it's out, it's to source,
mm,
it's to God, um in a not in a you know God, not in a
I understand.
yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm curious, in that moment when you're talking about God or the universe or the goddess, or however whatever words we want to use, because sometimes I think when we're creating and what comes through our body is often coming from the universe and coming from spirit in some way. But what I heard was almost that you would be singing as well to the universe. Did I
Yeah.
hear that right?
Yeah. So it's more, what it feels like for me is it is my soul that is singing.
Mm-hmm.
And the soul for me is deep, deep in the heart. Um, so how I view it is, there's source, and then that first departure from source is soul. And I'm getting right to that door, that right to that gateway that we left from, like
Mm.
right there on the edge of it. and I'm singing back to source, or I'm playing.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
what I'm seeing is your body almost being like a channel, and it's looping, the energy's looping, it's coming through you, it's coming out of you, and it's just part of that, the cycle, that the flow you mentioned earlier. But now that I'm hearing it this way, I'm finding that a really interesting visual that I wouldn't have considered with the creativity and the going out to source. Because I think I've just been thinking about it as, if you're putting something out, yes, it's going to affect, be in service, to others in some way. But I hadn't also thought about how it can be from and to the universe at the same time.
Yeah. And with the four, the holy idea being origin, right? And so we are origin. We emerged from origin. We go back into origin. So,
Mm,
so back into source and out and back in and out. Yeah.
yeah, I like that.
So that like wellspring, I think of like the wellspring out of source, and it goes out and then it comes back in.
Mm, I like the flow of that, that universal flow, um, and considered. I'm I'm curious, because we've spoken a lot about creativity in the form of singing and making music. For you, when you work with clients or you're in your yoga class or in other spaces, and I can understand that you bring music into those spaces. What I'm curious about is, beyond the music and the singing, how do you see creativity in your life in other spaces or in other ways?
Hmm. Well, I see everything as creativity. Um, as I'm looking around, um, even if it's kind of boxy and not seemingly creative, like a room, a four-walled room, it just is. So I start from that point. um,
Mhm.
Creativity is just here in every single moment.
And it's interesting as I hear you say that, I think my head wants to analyze it and pick it apart and try and find the root of it. But what I think I really need to do is that has to be felt. I think that creativity is everything has to come from the heart center. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sensing.
very, yeah, it's very much just a feeling for me.
Mm,
um so as I'm listening to you and the creativity, it just is creativity, your voice and the sound of your voice. To me,
hmm. Yeah.
it is like in a very, like, simple way. um yeah, so the emergence of creativity, it's just happening all the time, because back to holy origin and coming from source and everything arising from
Mm,
that back in. So I can't, it's like, it's just here. And
mm.
I feel it.
And I love that example of, just me speaking is creating something.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that's very easy to overlook and to discount and forget about.
Yeah. So it is, even though I'm singing and I actually don't use words when I sing, um, because that actually, and who knows, it might change for me tomorrow, but as of right now with my music, is putting words to something for me ends up limiting me.
Right.
So it being more of a non-verbal experience,
Mm,
creativity. Not saying that creativity cannot be in poems
got it.
and
Yep.
novels, all of that. Absolutely not. Um, but more at its I don't know, at its core, or it is something more nonverbal for me.
It's something felt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
felt. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was recently asked to describe my relation, well, what I got from art. And I just said, what's a feeling? I read a poem. I don't understand the poem, but I feel something, and
Right,
I'm not a heart type. So I can sometimes struggle to articulate that. But it is, to me, sometimes it's just a feeling.
right, right, right. And yeah, when I read a poem and I might just like wash, I read the words and it washes through me, and I don't need to have gotten every word, but I'm picking up on something.
Mm,
Space between,
that's
which is
right. Yeah.
what the four. Yeah. So interested in the space between. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. And so it doesn't sound like that you've struggled with creative blocks, but I'm curious if you have, like, times when things just weren't flowing, and how did you navigate those situations?
Oh, I have absolutely. Um, what did you say? Wrangled with creative blocks. Yeah. Yeah. I shut off creativity for almost mm, like 15, maybe 12 years.
Wow.
Just couldn't access it. Um, and thanks to the Enneagram, seriously, thanks to the Enneagram and learning that I'm a sexual four, um, it started to, yeah, to help unlock.
Right.
And also being in relationship with another four and a self-preservation four,
Mm,
who is is an artist who was 25 years professionally as
right.
an artist, and interestingly is moving away from making art, but still making art just a different way.
Yeah.
Where does creativity want to flow? So
Mm,
with creative blocks, um I would say, self-consciousness getting in the way, um self-doubt, the envy, the chronic comparing myself to others, and um and wanting to do something, wanting to create, but i'm not I'm not good enough to do it. Now, this
mm,
is if I'm talking about things like projects that I want to do and I want to put out into the world, and I immediately stop myself. So, okay, let me back up. And then if I just look at creativity in a much simpler way, like creativity, and it kind of also depends on, or it does depend on where I am at emotionally in my life. With creativity, with creative blocks, if I'm not 100% yes, is that really true, then the block comes on. It kind of depends. Like,
mm,
I'm actually looking at it differently, is that it's not, or viewing it differently, like it's not being blocked, it's just, am I in the flow with it? And if I'm
mm,
not in the flow, then just let it go, relax it. So don't fight it and then have the block, and then, oh, there's a
mm,
block and I can't get it together. And if I can, unblock it, and then I'll be
mm.
good and I can create. Now it's more how I'm viewing it nowadays is just,
What's flowing?
if it's not in the flow, it
Don't
doesn't
resist it.
necessarily mean that it's blocked. Maybe it's just hanging
Yes.
out on the banks of the river.
It's just not the right time. Um,
Yeah.
and I think there is a difference there too. I completely agree. There's a difference between how do you get going with creativity and creative expression again when you have shut it off for reasons such as, um, being criticized and the fear of judgment and the comparison piece, and how do you get that rolling again? And then how, when you've healed those underlying sort of, traumas and wounds, what does just being in the flow with creativity every day look like? And for me, what you've just described is exactly what works for me. It's like, well, where is the energy flowing? And, if it's not flowing, do I need to look at it, or do I just need to let it go and just go with what happens? But yeah, for the other piece, for me, it was definitely about, okay, what are the rules or expectations I'm trying to live by? Or like, what is that underlying wound and how do I heal it in order to create flow again?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. Yeah. So creative blocks coming from unhealed, uh, yeah, from unhealed events, circumstances, like going all the way back to childhood,
All the
sisters.
way. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So I've really learned not, so there's the healing part um, of it, and also the for me as a sexual four and also as an ENFP, so extroverted, and I tend to skip over my second function, my introverted feeling. So to stay in an extroverted place,
Mm,
it's been really supporting the introverted feeling place. So getting quiet and listening and going right into this space. And for a while it was just feeling kind of empty, or what is here, there's nothing here. And
mm,
but slowly in that quiet space, something starts to something starts to emerge.
mm,
So
completely.
that has been to I've been seeing lately that, okay, Vic, just slow down, okay, get quiet, and that helps to um unblock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that discovering your sexual four and the Enneagram was really powerful for you, particularly with your creativity. Could you tell me a bit more about how, yeah, learning your Enneagram type has changed and shaped your understanding of creativity and your creative expression?
As a kid, I loved to dance and sing, and we had a piano at the house, and I was, yeah, always messing around on it, and putting on the plays and theater in high school, um and um like enthusiastic, and a brightness, and and also I how much of this is story and not really true, how much of this is just a moment in time and it just went really deep in me and I was super sensitive to it. But hearing that I'm too intense, I'm too much, or I'm like being gullible to someone, or I'm like flirtatious, or too much, or I'm just too much in this expression. um,
Mm,
and really putting, really like trying to harness it, trying to just not be too not be too much of like what naturally wants to express.
mm,
So with the sexual four, yeah, learning that I'm a sexual four, and with creativity, it has, and then going through the whole sexual four, like looking at what I'm doing, and then going through the passion and fixation and my wings and arrows and all of that jam. Um, and then seeing the beauty, as with every subtype, like the good, the beauty of all that, and then seeing mine, it's like, all right, I just gotta, and like doing a lot of the cleanup, just, okay, I just gotta, there's nothing for me now to do. Not, of course, there is for me to keep
always.
working being in the practice and all of that, but like start giving it, like really start to give it, and not, and you can just set aside that story of being too much,
Mm,
or just the automatic judger that wants to come in, and that self-consciousness, and that part that wants to identify with the bad of me. Just set that aside, and give, like, give the good of me.
mm,
So in learning that I was a sexual four, and then being in the whole throes of like, oh my God, I'm a sexual four. That's the worst subtype ever on the Enneagram. Oh my God, we're the angriest. Holy shit. Excuse me. Um, yeah, and then going through, the work of taming my sexual instinct and what I automatically want to do with like blame and attack, and everyone else is causing my pain, like just really doing a lot of deep, deep, deep
mm,
work with that, like pain, getting into the sadness. Um, yeah, I'm really, I love what's happening
mm.
creatively.
It sounds like that having the description of the sexual four and what the common patterns in terms of the thoughts and the feelings were helped you be able to set them aside. It's like, oh, those aren't actually true. And so I can just set them aside so I can allow something else to emerge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like the sexual four personality was simply getting in the way,
Mm,
the creativity,
mm,
the yeah, the passion and fixation were just, yeah, they were getting in the way, and I couldn't just set them aside. There was work I had to do.
oh, yeah. I liked my summary. I made it sound easy. Yeah. I know how much work that is. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, yeah, and so worth it.
This has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing so many wonderful aspects of yourself. It's been a delight to learn about creativity from your perspective. It really has. It's been wonderful.
Thank
Is
you.
is there anything we've missed? Is there anything that you wanted to share or add before we wrap up?
Um, let's see. I just have my notes. I did, yeah, just one thing, maybe two. I just want, like, the feeling of creativity. Um, Something that I learned from my teacher, my hatha yoga teacher, so Sophia Diaz, who I studied with for years. She would speak to like being with what's here, and shining through it, both loving through it and shining through it. So the feeling of creativity for me, like I feel it right now. I see it. There is this shining, and it's not like a woo thing. And it's like very, very simple, but it's this just shining. It's shining inside me. It's shining outward. Um, that's the feeling of creativity in a very basic way for me.
Mm,
So, and it's also like looking through my eyes. It's like this kind of what's behind my eyes, and looking through out into the world. Um, yeah, that just describing a little bit more of the feeling of creativity in me, in my body.
mm. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, especially as someone who can sometimes get too stuck in the head. I've got this image of you with this golden shining heart, this light just pouring out of you. I just love
Thanks. I'll take
it.
it.
All right. I think
Yeah, this has been
that's us
wonderful.
for today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy.
Yeah. Yeah, it has.
Got some wonderful images of creativity in my mind that I'm going to be thinking about for a while. So thank
Mm,
you.
you're welcome.